and I hope that you are doing everything possible to finish the year strong, because the stronger you finish the year, the stronger you're going to start 2026. And I think it's going to be really key to start off strong, because there's a lot of indicators that say that 2026 is going to be a good year. Now, I can't predict the future, and I don't trust any economists that say that they can predict the future, because they're typically wrong. But I think that we have a lot of good things in line to be able to make it a decent year. I feel like we're leveling out. We're, getting, where it was such an extreme seller's market, and we're kind of going into a buyer's market. But depending on the area that you're in, there's still some seller markets. There's some extreme buyer markets, and then there's some balanced markets. So everything varies depending on the property, the type of property, the condition of the property, and what the buyers are looking for. There are still buyers out there. We're finding a lot of cash buyers. So, you should be able to, hold on one second. All right. Somebody asking if we had a meeting this morning. Uh, so, and hopefully you saw that this is being recorded. So, and then we'll upload it to the DoCrew on Facebook and to our private group. But I think that the market shows some really good strength coming up, and values still have to adjust. That's going to continue to adjust, I believe. And just the history. I mean, I've been buying and selling homes since the 80s. So, and also working in construction, we've seen the market come up, we've seen it go down. The market always cycles, right? And I think that we're still in that downward cycle, which we could be for a little while, but then we're going to start bouncing back. But just because we're in a downward cycle doesn't mean that there's not business to be had. It just means adapting to the market and changing up what you're doing, and approaching business in a way that you need to get a bigger piece of that pie, right? Because if you look around, there are still people killing it in this business, in this market right now, right? They are selling tons of property. They're selling high-end property. They're selling low-end property. It's just a mix of everything. Okay. Did anybody have an issue connecting this morning? I got one agent saying it's just not connecting. Um, hmm.
I was able to log in directly from your email today.
Yeah.
I came in off the calendar, so.
Okay. Yeah,
That
look,
works.
if you've accepted the calendar request, it's going to place it on your calendar. It's always going to be there, right? That's the easiest way to be able to jump on and be consistent with the link. So anyway, yeah, if you're not working on setting yourself up for 2026 right now, then you are going to be behind the eight ball when 26 rolls around. And that's why it's so important to don't let up steam now, because of the holidays coming. I know that people feel like, well, it's the holidays, people don't buy, and yada yada yada, excuse after excuse. But the reality is that I've had some tremendous Novembers and Decembers, but I also utilize that time to wrap up my year and to do my planning, and to get myself situated so that the first quarter of the following year is going to start off very strong. So you should be working on that. We'll work on, in the coming weeks, we'll work on business planning. We'll bring some things in, some tools for you to use to do your business planning for the upcoming year. We also have some great things coming up with, we've got a DBPR investigator that's going to come on. I haven't lined up the actual week yet, but he's promised me to come on, and so we'll bring him in. We've also got an attorney, or possibly two attorneys, lined up that want to come in and talk to us. We're going to cover a lot on marketing, because I see a lot out there on social media where it just makes me shake my head, and it's just unbelievable, the things that I see, and I'm like, how do they not know this? And the ironic thing is that there's several of them that I know that I have invited to join us here on the DoCrew, and they have not showed up. In fact, they haven't even responded. And I'm like, man, you guys are the ones that need this the most. But I'll keep you posted as we have that lined up. But today, I still want to talk about luxury homes, even though the agent that assured me she'd be on this morning is not here, because it's really important. People don't understand that there's a difference between the types of markets that you cover, whatever your niche is in the market. And luxury is something that is very different. And so I feel like anybody can break in to the luxury market, but there's going to be things that you need to learn. And that, what you need to learn is plentiful. There's so much that you need to know about affluent people, the whole luxury market, and what it takes to get some of those sold and marketed, because it is a different type of marketing. You're reaching different people. And so the agent that I wanted to bring on, she actually started brand new. Okay. She had no experience in real estate. And she came to me when I was the manager at Sotheby's, and she said she wanted to work in the luxury market. And I was just very impressed with her, and I hired her right away. And it took her a while to get up and going, right? Just like anybody else in this business, it takes a while to get your business up and get it going, get it to where you're successful. It took her a few years, but before long, she was averaging about 3.5 million as sales go. I don't have where she peaked out, but she was a big producer. She became a nationally known name, and she has also helped another big brokerage form a luxury division. And she did this all through networking and social media. So I watched as she actually, I used to see the social media posts, and got to the point where when somebody was posting something in a group and they were looking for somebody in Orlando, people were actually putting her name in. And just so that I know that a couple of you on here know her. Her name is Miranda Katie. Okay, she worked with Premier Sotheby's. She's now with another brokerage, but she's an author of a couple different books, and she's got other books that are lined up, including real estate books, and she helps others succeed in the business. Okay, but she started out where she started networking with everybody in the Sotheby's network. All right, so she was getting to know on a personal level. She was building her relationships with other agents. And now I say this because it's really important to understand that I used to have agents when Facebook was new, and I was working with agents, and they were saying, well, why do I want to like this? This agent had invited me to like their page. Why do I want to like some other agent's page? They're my competition. Like, look, you want to build relationships with other agents as well, because referrals happen that way, right? There's a lot of agents that live off referrals. That's all they do. Some agents, give referrals. That's all they do. Some agents take referrals, and that's all they do. And that's how they generate business. And so through social media, it used to be that people would always recommend Miranda because she was the first top of mind agent that they knew in the Orlando market. And this was really critical because, she just put herself out there. She went to the conventions, and this is what I recommend to people all the time is, look, get yourself to the conventions, get yourself meeting other agents. And to do this by going by yourself. Okay, don't go with a buddy and go to the conventions and just hang out together and you're always sitting together and you're talking together. That doesn't help you meet new people. Okay, when you go alone, and I've done this many times myself, you go alone with the intention of creating new relationships with other agents and other people. I mean, there's going to be other vendors there and things. So you never know who you're going to meet. So go there and start meeting people and then build relationships with the people that you meet. Don't just go and exchange a business card. Go and talk to them. Okay, get to know them, let them get to know you. Okay, and then follow up afterwards. Okay, stay in front of them because that's how they're going to recommend you when they see posts, especially if you're in, certain groups together. Your name is going to be the one that comes up and recognized as the go-to person. All right. Another thing that she did in order to get in with the affluent is she went to every at first low cost or free ball or event that the affluent would go into. Okay, meaning that she would go. Maybe it was the American Heart Association Heart Ball. I know you got to pay for that, but that one's not a very expensive one to go to. There's the Margarita Ball. These are ones that you pay for, and they're not exactly cheap. But if you go in as one person, it's a lot cheaper than if you go in as a couple, right? But if when you go to these events, the idea is to go and meet people, have conversations with them. So, this is really important because that's where the people with money are. You want to go to where the people with money are. Okay, that's the affluent. And I want to say I got a couple books to recommend to you. Okay, this is a book by Jack Cotton. Anybody hear of Jack Cotton? Jack Cotton is a super high-end luxury agent he's up in somewhere in the Massachusetts area. I don't remember if he was over on the resort or if he was inland, but he was selling luxury homes. Okay, he's got a couple different books out. Very good, an amazing agent. But one of the first books that I read when I started with Sotheby's, one of the things that they asked me before they hired me was, well, what do you know about the luxury market? Well, I came from, a beach market. And to me, that was a luxury market because people were buying second homes, right? These are vacation properties. So I was dealing with affluent people and selling them, vacation homes and investment properties. But a friend of mine, when I got hired by Sotheby's, a friend of mine came forward and she said, Paul, you got to read this book. It's The Art of Selling to the Affluent. And I can't recommend this one enough because if you have not done luxury at all, or even if you are doing luxury, this book is going to give you some inside tips that you need to know when it comes to dealing with the affluent. It really was a great book, and I was able to implement that in my office and talking to agents and helping them. But a lot of the agents that were in my office, actually more so the agents that I recruited into the office than the ones that were there when I got there, because the ones that I got there when I started with Sotheby's, most of them were just dreaming of working the luxury market and they weren't really getting anything done. But I started recruiting agents that were in the luxury market, and I knew more the right questions to ask them in order for me to determine if they knew what they were doing in the luxury market. So I recommend that you get The Art of Selling to the Affluent, and then maybe find somebody else. Jack Cotton, like I said, is another one that got recommended to me by a good friend, and so I started watching some videos from Jack and listening to some of his podcasts, which really weren't, I don't know if they were called podcasts back then, because I'm going back to like 2015, 2016. But you learn so much by listening to the people that are doing it, right? They're getting it done. And that's why I really wanted Miranda on here so you can hear her full story. But I thought that she was well connected when she came on board, because it's like she came on board. One of her first transactions was in like New Smyrna Beach, and we were in the Dr. Phillips office, and then she was dealing with people in Boca Grande, which to me, I'm like, at that point, I was like, where the hell is Boca Grande? I mean, I've lived in Florida mostly since since 1978, and I'd never heard of Boca Grande. So, and I learned, and actually, Valerie and I had taken a drive down there at one point, and we drove through Boca Grande. And I was just like, oh my God, that place is amazing. So I thought she was well connected, and the reality was that she knew some people, and she came from Michigan, so she knew some people up there. But the reality is that she built it from the ground up, and she did it through the social media and through the networking. And anytime that you can get into events where you can meet people face to face, Chamber of Commerce is a good place. The Orlando Economic Development Commission, I think, what is it? They changed their name. I don't even know what they're called anymore. Um, but that's a place where you'll meet a lot more affluent people than the Chamber of Commerce. But the Chamber of Commerce will still have some people that are pretty affluent in there as well. But you want to find where these people are and go to them. Pretty simple. Okay, but it takes time. You can't go to an event and expect that, well, I met 5 people tonight and I'm going to make a sale in the next month. No, you got to build the relationships. And over time, you want to be that go-to person. So you want to be the one that shows up on their feed. You want to, I've never been one to befriend customers on my social media. I have accepted friend requests from some of my customers, but I don't go out and pursue them and give them a friend request, because I'm of the firm belief that, yes, they're our best friend while we're working with them, and then poof, they're gone, because they really don't. They're not looking for a new friend. They're looking for somebody that's going to help them achieve their goal. Okay, somebody that's helping solve their problem. If a friendship develops from it, so be it. I mean, we do have some people that we have remained friends with. We there's some that we're friends with, but we're not friends on social media. So it's just social media doesn't have to be that, but if you use it properly, and there is a proper way to use social media, it's not just a matter of making a post every day and then just when somebody makes a comment, clicking a like. If somebody comments on your post, you got to engage. Okay, when they make a post, you got to again go on their post and engage. Make a comment and do it in a way that actually engages them, because otherwise, if you just make a comment on their post, they're going to go through and just put a like on it and boom, it's gone, right? You want to get that engagement, because that's going to be what sets up the relationship. So so it's really not that tough to do it. You have to just lay out a plan for yourself. Okay, say, this is what I want to get into, this is a niche I want to develop for myself. Okay, find the neighborhoods that you're going to market to, and then learn about those neighborhoods. Because if you don't know the neighborhoods, when you get to meet somebody that is, let's say, you go to a gala and you meet somebody and they live in Isleworth, but you've never sold anything in Isleworth. What do you know about Isleworth, right? Usually we're learning about neighborhoods as we make a sale in there, but you've got to know where these people live and know more about those particular neighborhoods. So it's really important. And you just need to know just enough to get by in a conversation with them. You don't need to know every single detail, but you want to be able to assure them that you know what you're talking about, so that they have some confidence in you. Does that make sense? So, excuse me. So I think it's really important to come up with a game plan and develop that. And that's something, I mean, if you wanted additional help in that, I'd be happy to, help you out on like a one-on-one or something. We can talk about that after our meeting, but these are people that a lot of times, they've got a lot of equity in their homes. A lot of times they're cash buyers. We just work with some people that, they sold and cashed out of a house that was, worth almost $4.5 million, and they downsized to a really nice lakefront property, which is probably very close to the same square footage, but they spent $2.6 million. So, and then he's looking at other things, so they've got money. They're looking to invest it properly. and things that are going to gain equity for them because, well, real estate does a whole lot better than the stock market does overall. So, and smart people know that. So they want to be able to find things um, that are worthy of their investment. So now, Laura, you're new to our calls. I know you specialize in luxury, don't you? Laura, you still with us? All right. All right. She's muted, but maybe she's just away from her screen right now. But and I know, Cindy, you've worked with Sotheby's before, and you've learned a lot about the luxury market. I think that it's really key. And Martha, the same thing. Martha, we used to be with Sotheby's, and through the brokerage, there was a lot of learning about luxury and how to approach people and things to do. But you know, it's important to be able to take every opportunity to learn about that you can. So you do that by reading books. You do that by attending other classes that might be offered when it comes to dealing in luxury. I know that there are some CE courses that do deal with that, but yeah, Martha says marketing is great at Sotheby's. Yeah, look, Sotheby's is a marketing company, and they market to the affluent. And so it's Sotheby's and Christie's. They're very similar in how they operate, and they're known for their auction houses, and they're known to deal with the wealthy, right? So that's where you do have some brand recognition and help from having that brand. And I'm not promoting any brand by any means, because you can do this no matter who you're affiliated with. Okay, it doesn't have to be a luxury brand, but those luxury brands have people coming to them just because of the brand. All right. Um, but there's other companies. Some of the larger companies have a luxury division. All right. So if your brokerage is offering a luxury division, you might want to look at becoming a part of that and learn what it's going to take. Now, if they're offering to be a part of their luxury division and you have to pay a certain fee to be a part of that, well, you may want to wait until you actually have some luxury transactions under your belt, right, before you start buying into it, unless you have the cash flow to do so. Because they will provide you with luxury type marketing. There is definitely a difference. There's a difference in the font use. There's a difference in the images. There's a difference in everything that you do with the luxury marketing. So you want to talk to your broker and with them talk about how you can break into the luxury market and see what they have to offer. I might even go ahead. I really wish that Miranda was here, because she would be able to answer a lot more questions right off the cuff than I can, because I didn't prepare a presentation for today. So I'm just kind of talking off the cuff here because she didn't make it in. But there's a lot of marketing to be done. Another high-end luxury agent that I'm very much aware of, and actually several of them, what they specialize in picking up marketing is to do every door direct postcards, and they will do the larger postcards. And sometimes what they're doing is they're mailing brochures, so it could be a multi-page brochure being mailed, and it's very, very beautiful looking. It's the colors are amazing. The quality of the cardstock is amazing. It's on high gloss, and these, they will say direct mail works, okay, but they're doing the every door direct. So they're picking a route, okay, in that covers the neighborhoods that they want to get. So now it's going to cover that neighborhood, and it might cover some other things that you don't want to cover, but every door direct is less costly, so it really doesn't matter. The important thing is that you're getting into a neighborhood and you're being consistent with that direct mail. One approach too is having a buyer when you have a buyer looking for something specific, is finding that neighborhood that has homes that meet that criteria and solicit to those homeowners and say, hey, look, I've got, a buyer looking in Isleworth, or I got a buyer looking in Windermere, and just, they really want this certain type of house, and I think your house might suit their needs. So now you've got a legitimate reason to reach out. You have to be careful of the do not call list, of course. But there's other ways to reach out. Door knocking still works, although I'm not a big proponent of door knocking unless you do it in pairs to be safe. But door knocking still works, and having conversations with people. I'd be more apt to go to the events where you can meet people. You kind of meeting them on the same level. You've got the commonality already because you're both at the same event. Easier to start a conversation. They're not threatened by some stranger coming to their door, knocking on it, and trying to solicit them to sell their house. Does that make sense? So you can watch the calendar. Look, we have so many events that go on around Central Florida. So many events where you can get in. A lot of them are inexpensive. Some are very expensive. Some are, a couple $100 for a ticket to go to a ball. That's not exactly cheap. But again, if you're at the point where you've built your business and you've got some good cash flow, then you know what? It's worth spending that couple $100, because just the people that you'll meet on that particular night could earn you a lot more. I think that we're all ready, willing, and able to provide a 25% referral to other agents that send us business, right? Yeah, yeah, we're all willing to do that. In fact, some might even be willing to give up 30% for a referral. Now, somebody gives you a referral, does that mean that you're going to close them? Is that a for sure thing? No, it's not. It's not. So if you're not willing to spend some of your own money to invest in your business, you got to think about it as such. Look, if you get referred to somebody that you're going to earn a $10,000 commission on, but you got to give up $2,500 for that referral, you're netting $7,500. Well, wouldn't you be willing to spend $2,500 on marketing that could get you even more than that potentially? I mean, really, $2,500 to market, that can go a long way. It really can, especially with online marketing. You can canvas a lot of people. And that's where, even for myself, we still do some direct mail, but it's limited. But the direct mail I'm doubling up with marketing to the people directly on Facebook, and then also casting a wider net in the same area. So they're seeing me multiple times on different platforms, and that's what will generate some interest. Anybody else that has been doing luxury and have anything to contribute to that?
Well, I have a comment.
Yeah.
Couple of things you hit on. When you're mailing out letters, do not, under any circumstance, put it on standard copy paper.
Yeah.
You can just upgrade it to the next level of brightness. And it is just it looks so much better. It's received so much better. I get answers all the time. Play with your fonts, get something that's, I've done marketing for years, and, I don't know, I've gotten a video in Forbes magazine, but so what do I know? But anyway, just pump it up a level. It is subliminal, but people will hold on to it longer if it's something that just feels and looks a little better or brighter. And, they may actually read it if the contrast is a little better. So, there's little things like that to do in general for every single mail that doesn't really cost really anything more. Just buying that next level up paper is fantastic. The second, thing I want to say is when we have worked with these kinds of people, they're wonderful to work with. it's, you know, you get everybody. But the main thing I'd say is be ready with an answer. So do your homework ahead of time so that you have an answer. Become their expert. Whatever, wherever you're going, whatever path they're leading you down, you know, study for days before you meet with them so that you're ready to go. It will pay off. So
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, if it feels cheap, they're not going to be interested. You know, it's got to feel good. And that's why I said, you know, the direct mail, what these brokerages and agents are doing that specialize in luxury, they're sending a brochure. They'll take a listing that they just got and put together a brochure. It could be just a 4-page, bifold, and and send it out, every door direct. And I mean, that's not cheap. Okay. But that's what brings the luxury sellers, because they're receiving this. They may not be ready to do something now, but they'll hold on to it because they're impressed by the marketing, the quality of the marketing. And so they will hold on to that till they are ready to go. So I think that, luxury is different in the way too, that it might take a little longer to make a sale. You've got to be a lot more patient. You're probably going to have to go for, each and every showing. If you have a listing, right, you need to be there on behalf of the seller, get it prepared before the buyer shows up and the buyer's agent. You got to turn on all the lights and make sure that everything's in place and make it look like a show place. So it takes a lot more time, a lot more energy. Sometimes the expectation is a little higher as well. So you've got to be able to manage those expectations of the sellers and just, but the thing is that, you can have a pretty good year just selling 4 or 5 homes. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, so you go ahead.
Sorry, leave a leaf blower in your trunk. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
do the driveway before they show up.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what too, is like, I've known some very successful agents, like, when they're helping the seller get prepared to go live. I mean, I've seen agents go with a pressure washer and, pressure wash their sidewalk and the front walkway, and yeah, carry the leaf blower and just do those little things, right? Because it's so important. That first impression is critical, and you can't redo the first impression. And so you want it to be pristine. That's the expectation, is everything needs to be pristine when it comes to luxury. I used to make sure too that when my agents came into the office, they weren't allowed to wear jeans into the office, and they didn't, they had to come in with a sport jacket on, because that is the level of professionalism that we wanted to portray. So if you're coming into the office, this is where we need to be. Now, what you do when you're out there working with your client, that is up to you. You dress according to what you need to do with your client. And it's just, what you don't want to do is you don't want to outshine your client. I wouldn't wear, a three-piece suit going out to show a $200,000 property, right? Because that's not going to make the buyer feel comfortable. But what you do want to do is just stay one notch above what you think your buyers and sellers are dressed as. So you got to get to know them before your appointment. You got to get to know who they are, what they do for a living. There's a good chance that if they were working a job where they wore a suit and tie every day, they're probably going to come in jeans, right? They're going to come in a lot more relaxed because they have to do that, all week long. So yeah, so you've got to weigh it out and just have, dress accordingly so that you're not, I wouldn't go in a t-shirt. But you know what? For some people, jeans and a t-shirt and a jacket works really well for them. So I wouldn't tell them don't do that, but yeah, Dagmara says it went away. Dagmara says that people need training on attire and luxury sometimes. Absolutely. I see over the top promiscuous outfits often. Yeah, pick a happy meal. Yeah, you know what? I've had to tell some ladies in my office to like turn it down a notch. Turn it down on the perfume, turn it down with the see-through blouse. Cover up, be professional, because nobody wants to see that. It's just especially odds are you're going to be working with a married couple. You could work with some single people, but you got to know your audience, right? You got to play into that hand. And no, maybe there's a situation where you're a woman and you're working with a rich single man, and you feel comfortable, he feels comfortable, fine. All right, but you got to feel that out first. You can't just assume that because that could make people feel very uncomfortable. I had the CEO one point say, yeah, wrong type of sales. Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Bri. Yeah, I had my CEO see an agent post a picture on Facebook, and she was fully clothed, but she was on the bed in a hotel room, just laying there, and with in a pose, and CEO says, Paul, get her to take that down. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. I agree. It's because you're representing, right? You're representing you're representing your brokerage. And this is not, we're not dealing with kids here when you're in the luxury market, right? You're dealing with sophisticated people. And most of which, there's always those that are rich, but still are teenagers, in their mind. But at the same time, yeah, keep to the brand always, because that does build trust. So, okay. Well, just heard from Miranda. All right. Well, she apologizes she can't be here. But that's okay. Any other questions or comments on luxury? Those that have not done luxury, what is that you feel you need to know to be able to break into that?
I've never really done luxury much. I just ironically though I have $1 million listing right now that I'm doing the same thing you're talking about, Paul. Get there early, get lights on, get everything set up. I'm at every showing. I just closed one last Friday for 1.29. And so with that, I don't know. The luxury market is a much different market. I think, for me at least, I think it's trying to tap into people that are in that market already, clients, friends, because a lot of the bread and butter I do is just 3 to 500 and that kind of ballpark. So I'm not ever really in the luxury market. It's just not it's something I never really kind of gravitated towards. But for me, it seems like, what I think once you start finding people in that market, then they start referring you to others. And that's kind of how I tapped into it. And when I first started in the market, I was doing every door directs to the luxury markets, and I was doing a severely discounted commission, which I know made a lot of agents in the area very upset, but I figured I had nothing to lose. I just got into the business, so why not, offer some insanely low commissions to see if I can get some of these luxury, sellers. Come to find out, a lot of the sellers, if they can save money, they're willing to listen to you and willing to, help you try to, sell their homes. So I did that for a little while, but then I just kind of went back to my bread and butter, which was 3 to 5, and that's kind of, where I feel comfortable and I enjoy, the clientele in that market and that price point.
Yeah, so the 3 to 5 keeps food on the table. There's no doubt, and that's one of the things that, you've got to continue to do that. If that's what you're doing now, but you want to break in, it's like, well, don't stop doing what you're doing. You need to be able to add to that. As I always talk about spinning plates, you get something going good, get that plate spinning, and then add another one. But yeah, and because you know what too, you don't want to give up the average market, because the luxury market goes up and down too. And if the luxury market is in a down situation and it's just, it's struggling to sell properties, you still need to eat. So you continue to work on the average price market and be able to continue to sell property. But in the meantime, you still work in that luxury market. It's important to continue to do both. There's nothing wrong with having two niches. In fact, you can have 3 if you wanted, but I would focus on one. And as you get one niche going really good, you start adding a secondary niche. Okay. And it's just as, people that are very affluent, you'll find that a lot of them actually work, that are self-employed, own multiple businesses. There's some that, yeah, they own one business, one company, they got very rich. But you'll also learn that the smaller guy, the entrepreneur, has built by adding on, right? Making money, doing well. Well, oh, I found another business where there's an opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and add that. I worked with one guy one time. I asked him, I said, how many businesses do you own? He had 72 businesses that he owns, because he was ready to write a check for $2 million for this condo he wanted to buy that was oceanfront. And so, I was working with him for a while. As it turned out, he ended up not buying at least anything from me before I left there. So, Elliot says the average millionaire has 5 streams of revenue. Yeah, absolutely. Um, having those multiple streams, having multiple niches is the way to protect yourself against any economic downturn. Because as one market gets affected, there's going to be another market that is rising. In any downturn, there's always going to be something that's on the upturn. And so that's what you want to be able to balance out and make sure. Now, a lot of real estate agents will get into getting their mortgage license. They might get into title. They might get into home inspections. They might get into photography, right? As that extra income type of thing. But look, the housing market shrinks or takes a big downturn, that all of those get affected, right? So you're not balancing it out. You want to be able to have the proper streams of income that are going to carry you through the challenging times. Now, again, no matter what the challenging times are in real estate, there's always somebody making money. So you got to figure out what you need to change and what you need to adapt to in order to keep getting a bigger piece of that pie. Does that make sense? So, yeah, I think, definitely getting into luxury, we've considered it as, as an additional niche. I just, again, I'm at a point where I'm tired of keep building and rebuilding. so I'm kind of, like, well, we have some people that we've been working with that we do know, and that's enough. That's enough. We don't need to start new campaigns going out there trying to find people. I am finding that there are million and multi-million-dollar properties that are falling into the distress category. I'll market to those because, again, my goal is to help people, help them as much as I can. But, look, just because they've made a lot of money doesn't mean that they're that smart. If they let themselves get in a big hole where they fall behind in their mortgage, you know, maybe they've had a run of bad luck. Maybe they just didn't plan accordingly. Anything could happen in their lives that makes them fall behind. Yeah, Val.
I was gonna say, ours are a good referral source too. So
Yeah.
whenever anyone brings up the conversation of real estate with our previous customers, even the affluent ones, they built it right out there. So wherever they're
Yeah.
ready to jump in and help. So always, stay in touch, do a good job. It's the same as everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's building relationships. And when you do that, yeah, the referrals will come. Referrals will come because you'll be top of mind because you've been able to build a quality relationship with them. And that's what you want. You want them to be thinking about you when they get into conversation. Because you got to remember too, the affluent are usually very well connected. They have a lot of acquaintances. They may not always be friends, but they have a lot of acquaintances in the business that they do. They're usually attending board meetings. They're usually attending other functions that include other very affluent people. That's how you start doing it and start building those relationships. Brian?
I was just gonna say Miranda Katie was actually the first agent that gave me a shot on a $1 million plus loan. This was back yeah, like 6 years ago. So when you started mentioning it, I'm like, oh, that's too funny. And I took Elliot's approach because when I got that buyer, I was scared out of my damn mind. So I commission went lower and just kind of put, for the most part, everything else aside and just kind of worked that file. And what I got from there was what you were just saying of like, all right, I did a good job, and then those people knew other people, and other referrals came from that, and gained more confidence. And what I learned was working with luxury, even on the mortgage side, a little bit similar to real estate, of like having to be the expert, be available. I think that's what I've noticed working with that clientele is that if they need an answer to a question, do not wait and just kind of go, saying the obvious, like be above and beyond, but really just being the expert and being available. I think that was the two things that I learned from working with some luxury clients.
Yeah, that's so true. That one I closed last week, it was a buyer, and yeah, we saw about 50 homes, and I mean the amount of time consumed with it was insane. The expectations of, them wanting to be on call and needing to see homes right away. I mean, I'm with you, Brian. That's how it is.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. So it's a different, it's a different type of setting. Um, but I think that, anybody is capable of working that market. You've got to become that person, right? You can't just say, all right, well, I'm me, I'm just going to be me and try to work with the affluent. No, you can't just do that. You need to become the person that the affluent want to work with. All right. Doesn't mean that you have to be that millionaire or multimillionaire for them to work with you. But you just got to be the person that, walks like them, that talks like them, has the confidence like they do, right? Because they'll recognize that. They'll know right away whether you're a fraud or not. So you've got to be able to do your homework, and be prepared when you talk to them, and just, know what you're talking about. And that's that they will respect that. Anything else? Any other comments, questions?
Well, I did sell $1 million house. And I sold 3 of his properties, 3 of his other properties. So I guess that's okay. But
Yeah.
I sold one earlier this year, and 860 was the last one, so that's close enough. But currently I'm doing a direct mail to all, anything above 800, I think is what the MLS is automatically sending me. Anything above that that's on the MLS that has been canceled, they're all coming my way. So they're all receiving direct mail. Just a quick note I wanted to share, if that's okay, that I thought would help
Yeah.
everybody. I did direct mail through Corfact, and I was pretty impressed. You pay, and of course, when you design it and you get the great paper, and I always attempt to find vendors with that great Sotheby's high quality paper, and try to use them as a guide. And you can go on ChatGPT and ask what their fonts are.
Yeah.
So anyway, when you get to the very, very end of designing your postcard, they ask you if you want to do that 3 cents more per postcard or mailer. And then they can go online and they can see their mail, and they can rotate your piece for an extra 3 cents.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, that's
that's all
pretty
I wanted
cool.
to say.
Yeah, Corfax has got some good postcards and good features on that. And direct mail is not the cheapest way to advertise, but it's still effective. And the Every Door Direct is one way um to make it more affordable. Another way to make it more affordable, and I'll post a link in the DoCrew because I don't have it open in front of me. I got to dig it out. I got to remember what link that was. But basically, you can buy stamps in bulk. We were getting them, a roll of 100 for like 27, 28 bucks. This site has got it even cheaper than that. So I'll share that with you guys, because what you can do is you can actually have those postcards come to you all ready to go, and then all you got to do is stamp them, and it's going to save you even more money, especially if you're doing the bulk content. If you're not doing a big bulk content, then I wouldn't even worry about it. But yeah, if you're sending out 1,000 postcards, or even mailers, direct, doing a letter, which letters are a little bit more effective than postcards. You want to be able to have those stamps, because the stamps are getting so expensive right now, and these are legitimate stamps, so they say. Post office is taking them, and they say that they are legitimate. So I'm figuring that they're probably printed in China and coming over, and so I don't know. I don't know, but as long as they keep taking them, then that's what I'm going to do. So I'll share the link for that with you, and that way you'll know where to get those. So I also use another platform where it's a little bit cheaper for the postcards to go out. It's like 60 cents for a small postcard and 80 cents for the 6x9 postcard. So that's the postcard, stamping, everything, and it goes first class. So it's a lot cheaper than what I can get at Corfac. But it's built into the platform that I'm a part of, that I pay monthly for. Um, so anyway, uh, you got a question, Cindy?
I'm sorry, it's at the end of the hour. I didn't mean to do that. But
Okay.
last Friday, I went to that luxury open house,
Oh yeah,
and
how was that?
it's like 7 stops, 7 glasses of wine, and 7% interest commission. So, but I was surprised that how basic all of these 7 houses were. I'm not sure I would necessarily focus on dream finders. And I even asked one of the representatives, I'm like, please tell me, I mean, they were all 1.3 pretty much. They were the same. They weren't anything above that. They weren't, 2, 3, 4, whatever. But none of them had like I would consider high-end items like brick or accent walls or paint. None of them had any of that. They were all very basic on the inside. So I say, well, who's your target audience? And they said, anybody who wants to come and live in Windermere.
Mm-hmm.
Or investors who want to buy it low. So what they're doing is they're buying these properties. They're in Lake Nona as well, and I'm sure they're in Winter Garden and all these new constructions and everywhere in
Mm-hmm.
Florida now. But they have investors that are buying the properties out of the current state. For example, these, and the builder is paying them rent for $9,000 a month until they stop using it as a model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great opportunity for investors to buy a model home like that, get the rental income, and you know, and let it gain equity. Could work out well. So that's awesome. Well, yeah, we're sorry we missed it. We had to go down to River House, and we didn't get back till last night. So what it sounds like a good event. And Brian was asking, is there a link to those model homes by chance? Are they in the MLS? I'm not sure.
I'll can send you all the addresses. How's that?
Yeah, okay, yeah. Anything that you can send out that make it easier for us to find. Appreciate it. So all right, guys. Well, look, we got some additional you got your bag and everything. Very good. Yeah, they said you'd be walking away with some good swag. So but 7 glasses of wine, I guess there must have been a lot of drunks leaving there at the end, huh?
My photo is not as good, but I was at one house on the second story, and I took a picture, and you could see all these adults walking around with their bags that look like an adult Halloween.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, all right, guys. Well, look, I'm gonna keep you posted on what we have coming up in upcoming weeks, and try to keep you informed. we got to try to bring in, some more guests and I got some other, great topics that we'll be discussing. So if there's anything that you guys do need or a topic you want to have discussed, just let me know. Be happy to set that up and put that on the agenda. All right. All right, guys. Great to see everybody. Appreciate you all being here, and we'll see you next week. And Elliot, we'll jump on the other link. Okay. Give me a few minutes.
Thank
All right,
you.
guys. Take care.